And it's very simple. Prabhupada liked to sing, so we followed founder Acharya. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Divine Grace, A.C. Bhakti Swami, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai, Gaur Premanandi. Picture just went away. This has been an attempt to share the teachings of Srimad Bhagavatam on the chapters of Canto 4 that begin chapter 8 through 12, that's 5 chapters. And so far we've completed chapter 8. We just began chapter 9, and now we're inviting you to join us. So, Dhruva Maharaj is the person, and Dhruva Maharaj took his birth during the very early stages of Satya Yuga. Satya Yuga is the first of the 4 ages of mankind that cycle. The 4 yugas, or 1 yuga cycle, times 1,000 yuga cycles, makes a day of Brahma of equal duration, and there's 9 and so on. So time in Vedas, the Vedic picture, moves in cycles. Like, summer, fall, winter, spring, that's one cycle. Day and night is another cycle. There's small ones and medium ones and really big ones and really big ones. And then cosmic annihilation, that's a big one. And then after cosmic annihilation, resting, then again another creation, because time moves in cycles. History repeats itself, as they say. So one of the histories in this Srimad Bhagavatam is the history of creation from the time of cosmic annihilation. When it becomes time for creation, there's a procedure that's repeated each time there's creation. Vishnu, what he does, the sub-creation, what Brahma does, and then the producing of the living entities that fill up the universe once it's created, headed by Manu, the giver of law for mankind, one of the functions of Manu. And as another function of Manu is to help fill up the planet with different living entities of different species. That's what the 2 of the main functions of Manu. And so the first of the Manus that move in cycles, there's 14 Manus in every day of Brahma. Anyway, it's a long description. Each Manu presides for 71 of those yuga cycles, times 14 plus some buffer in between, the something. It makes 1,000 yuga cycles, 1 day of Brahma. So the early morning after Brahma is born, the very early stages, Swayambhuva Manu appears as a direct son of Brahma, he does the sub-creation. He's the chief engineer. Maybe there's some mechanical engineers or chemical engineers or electrical engineers or civil engineers, and he's like the PhD, the dean of all engineering. He's got the whole picture together, and he does the engineering of the universe, down to all the details. And then filling it up, and Manu appears directly from the body of Brahma, along with his good wife, without the assistance of Brahma's wife, just from his body. Very powerful person, creator, personality. So Manu has 2 sons and 2 daughters, without details. One of those sons' name is Uttanapada, and that Uttanapada is the father of Dhruva. Really early in creation. And the story of Dhruva's life goes like this. When he was a small boy, he was the firstborn son of the king. The king, Uttanapada, was king of the world, not some tract of land within the world. He was a very powerful king. And the firstborn son, by Vedic law, becomes the next king. But Uttanapada had 2 queens, and the younger queen her name was Suruchi, she was envious. She wanted her son, who was the second born, to become the king. And she was really proud. Pride and envy are really nasty. So, in her pride, one day, when her son, younger son, was sitting on the lap of the king, Dhruva came along seeing his brother on the lap of his father. He wanted to climb up on the lap of his father too. And Suruchi said something very nasty, very harsh, very mean-spirited. Get down. You cannot sit on the lap of your father or the throne of your father because you're not born from my womb. If you want to sit on your father's lap, you have to undergo great austerities. You have to worship the personality of Godhead, get his special favor, die, and then take birth from my womb, and then you can sit on your father's lap. Audibly, so the king could also hear. So, pretty nasty thing, huh? What is this little boy, 5 years old, understand all about what she said. But her body language and her tone and her whole demeanor was easy to understand. He was really hurt. He turned to his father, who said nothing. And we heard today, his father felt really, really regretful that he was so neglectful of his duty to give protection to his son. He could have said something like, he could have said all kinds of things. He didn't say anything because he was too attached to the younger queen, and if he said something that went against what the younger queen had to say, well, she might not be nice to him, and he wanted her to be nice to him, so he didn't say anything. He was, in the language of Bhagavad Gita, it's also in the Bhagavatam, Hridaya Dorbalya. Hridaya means heart. Dorbalya, weakness of heart. When you know what to do and you don't do it anyways, that's the block is weakness of heart. And the cause of his weakness of heart was overly attached to Suruchi. So much so he was blinded by what it's just a natural sentiment for what we'll do in that situation. He said nothing. That registered a lot of hurt on top of the other hurt to Dhruva. So he just burst out in tears and ran from the palace to find his mother. And his mother was also neglected because she wasn't the favorite queen. So, a series of things happened. I don't want to go through so many hours worth of stuff this evening. But his mother consoled him, comforted him, found out what the difficulty was, found out even in explicit terms that Dhruva didn't just want to sit on his father's lap. Now he was, I'm going to show you. Retaliation. I want a kingdom better than my father. I want a kingdom better than my father's father's father. So there, I'll show that. And his mother, Suniti is her name. Suniti knew her son. And her son is one you don't say no to because he doesn't know it's not his vocabulary. He was going to get that kingdom. He's very determined, the young boy. A Kshatriya-spirited, fierce spirit. So she advised him in higher principles of life, like don't ill wish anything against Suruchi. Don't do that. She didn't say don't try for the kingdom. Just don't hold ill feelings towards her. Don't wish ill for her because she hurt you. Don't do that. If you want your kingdom, this childlike wish, it's mission impossible, but the only way something like this is possible is if Vishnu, he's the source of everything, and if he wishes, you can have whatever you want. And she started glorifying, taking shelter of the lotus feet of Vishnu, becoming his dedicated devotee. So she passed on, in that conversation, she passed on a very important seed to her son, the seed of Bhakti. And add that to I want a kingdom. And off he goes to the forest to find Vishnu. Narad Muni comes, tries to check him, little boy. And says many things that Dhruva just, it bounces. He just wants the kingdom. So he demonstrates his determination. Narada Muni becomes his spiritual master, and he gives him a process, because this is Satya Yuga. The present Yuga is Kali Yuga. And the process in this present age is Nam Sankirtan, chanting of the holy name for achieving spiritual perfection, according to scripture. In that Satya Yuga is the process of meditation. So he gives him a whole Ashtanga Yoga process with meditation on the form of Vishnu, describes in detail the form of Vishnu, says here, along with the worship through meditation upon Vishnu and remembering his pastimes in his various incarnations, worshipping a deity form of Vishnu, and he describes how that is done. He gives him a mantra. Many of you know what that mantra is, right? Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. And instructs him 3 times a day. You absorb yourself in chanting of the mantra. You worship a deity form of Vishnu. You remember his pastimes in various incarnations. You engage in this Ashtanga Yoga system that he described. And he even gave him a place to go, a sacred place in Vrindavan, a place called Madhuban, one of the 12 forests of Vrindavan. He initiated him in mantra, meditation, along with this other process. So off he went, respecting Narada, feeling great gratitude in his heart for the gift that Narada had given him. And off he went. Then Narada went to see Uttanapada, his father, knowing he was devastated. Imagine, those of you that are parents, you neglect your child and he runs away from home and goes to the forest. No lunchbox. No change of clothes, just off to the forest. How would you feel? You feel terrible. And how's he going to go find him in the forest? Where is he in the forest? So Narada goes to visit him. The king receives him very nicely. Narada says, "You look very troubled. What is it?" And he pours out his heart. I'm a wretched person. I neglected my son. He didn't even say neglected. I rejected my son and my other queen, Suniti. How hard-hearted am I? This young boy, who knows, maybe the wolves came when he was asleep at night and devoured him. Who knows what his condition is? All because I'm so attached to my wife. But I didn't even pat him even once. Console him when he was feeling hurt. I'm a condemning person. I'm a wicked person. He spoke like that. Narada said, don't worry. Your son is well protected by Vishnu. And he was. And in fact, he's already a celebrated personality in the world. You don't know that, but he's a celebrated person already. And he's going to undergo great difficulties that even kings and sages cannot do. The little boy, this little boy is determined. He's going to achieve spiritual perfection. And shortly he'll come back. You'll see. So the king trusts Narada. And he becomes somewhat pacified, but it's like he's still tormented with feeling shame and feeling very badly of his neglect. So then we heard just today, Dhruva went off to the Madhavan and did everything that Narada said. Extremely intense austerities, without the detail. And in 6 months, he had completely captured the personality of Godhead within his heart as Paramatma, exactly as Narada had described. He was seeing the form of the Lord in his heart in trance. He had controlled the breathing process, the pranayama process, such that the whole universe, the flow of air within the universe, stopped. And the demigods were suffocating, and the whole universe was suffocating. So the demigods went to Lord Vishnu in Svetadweep. Some of you may know what that is. Svetadweep. Sveta means white and Dweepa means island. It's a planet called Svetadweep in this universe that's the planet where the personality Godhead Vishnu, who oversees material nature, has his place of residence. He resides in the heart of every living entity, and he resides in Svetadweep. That's his abode, reclining on the Anantashish. So they went there. Al, we can't breathe. We never had this happen before. Please help us. And Vishnu said, no worries. It's just a little boy, the son of King Uttarapada. And he says, fixed his mind with such intensity upon me through his austerities that this is the situation, but don't worry. I'll go and stop his austerities and everything will be all right. You can go back to your heavenly planets. Trusting his word, that's what they did. Lord Vishnu immediately departed, riding on Garuda from Svetadweep to where Dhruva was doing his austerities in Madhuvan in Vrindavan. And as he appeared before him, the meditation of Dhruva broke. When the Vishnu form within his heart disappeared, he was startled. He opened his eyes and there was the same Vishnu standing before him. Dhruva was in ecstasy. He fell like a stick, like a rod in front of Vishnu. With folded palms, he wanted to say something, but he's a little boy, he hadn't even gone to school. He didn't know how to compose himself and say something properly. And so Lord Vishnu, very kind, understanding the circumstance, he touched his forehead with his conch shell so that Dhruva could then speak transcendental prayers. So that's where we are. You're now up to speed with what we've done so far. And there's 12 prayers, and we call this the power of prayers. And give it a little subtitle, shifting the fulcrum of our consciousness. So fulcrum, that's like a physics term, and mechanics term too. It's just like in a child's seesaw, there's a plank, this board that goes diagonal there, and then there's a fulcrum that's right here, and so this is a little, very simple illustration to show what has happened so far. That's the little skinny guy, that's us, the conditioned soul. And we're way down here in the level of consciousness. And over here is our mind. And it's not really stable. It's chanchala in the language of Bhagavad Gita, flickering. But by the yoga process and good association and so forth, one can gradually make the mind strong. We have to practice, but the mind can become strong. And then, by good fortune, we may get the association of a spiritually elevated soul that gives spiritual instructions. So that's like this force that goes on the other side of the seesaw. And then you know what happens? That's what happens. Consciousness goes up. And when your consciousness goes up, then spiritual qualities become decorated upon you. That's what happened to Dhruva. His consciousness was, I want a kingdom. He didn't just like, I want a toy. I want one of the video games the other kids has, or whatever that little child's thing is. He wanted a kingdom. And it wasn't just like his father's kingdom. He was materially possessed. Little Kshatriya boy, Kshatriya spirit, get back. Not high consciousness. But the elevated consciousness that came as a result of his mind being very fixed and determined with full faith in Narada's words and his mother's words and the instructions of Narada, his consciousness became elevated, those material qualities dissipated, and he became decorated with very elevated qualities. So that's the fulcrum portion of the title here, subtitle. Little quick review. Dhruva went to the forest looking for Vishnu. He found animals and insects and trees and birds and all kinds of things, but he didn't find Vishnu until Narada came along. Narada also gave a benedicting touch upon his head, gave instructions in Bhakti process. He went to Madhavan by the 5th month. This illustration, he was doing yoga standing on one leg, totally concentrating on Parabrahman, chanting his mantra, as you see pictured around here, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. He captured the Supreme Personality of Godhead within his heart, and the whole 3 worlds became moved by the power of little Dhruva. The demigods went to Vishnu saying they were suffocating. He agreed to take care of the problem for them. He appeared in front of Dhruva. He touched Dhruva upon his head with his conch shell. And now Dhruva is going to begin offering suitable prayers. The prayers of Dhruva Maharaj. Now they're celebrated. This narration of Dhruva is narrated in most of the Puranas, or many of the Puranas. But the prayers found in the Bhagavatam, they're celebrated as Dhruva Stuti. And we're going to be this evening discussing 5 of those 12. You'll have to wait till I come back again for the other 7. That's where we'll resume. And then there's more that comes after that. The very first verse of the 5 He's just glorifying the touch of the Lord. Here's the Sanskrit, and I've highlighted, because of time I'm not going to go through everything, but I've highlighted the word pravishya and prasuptam sanjivayati. So pravishya means prasuptam sanjivayati. The Lord breathes life into Dhruva's senses. So he entered Dhruva. He's speaking to the personality of Godhead who's standing before him. This is after his meditation, and then he's standing before him. The meditation is broken, and now he's seeing the Lord directly with his eyes. By the touch, his spiritual Shakti entered into him, and thus enlivening his sleeping senses. Prasuptam is a state of consciousness. Sleeping. And the sleeping has now become enlivened, totally enlivened. Mama Vacham Imam, especially his power of speaking, so that now your servant, me, Dhruva, my power of speaking could describe your form, qualities, and activities, because that's what he wanted to do. But he kind of didn't know how to do it. He was a little boy, he was bewildered by the whole thing that was happening. The Lord showed his mercy and enabled him to speak by enlivening his senses. Akila Shakti Dharam. He's saying, you are the master of both my knowledge-acquiring senses and working senses. This is kind of like an expanded Bhagavad Gita class. So those of you that like Bhagavad Gita, we just yesterday observed Gita Jayanti. So you know in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 13, Bhagavad Gita, Krishna describes there's 5 knowledge-acquiring senses, 5 working senses, and the 11th sense, the mind. 11 senses. So, as if I was asleep, you have now woken up me and my senses. You're the master of these both, knowledge-acquiring and working senses. Now all my senses are awake, and I want to engage in your service. Just from your touch. So the prayer is glorification of the touch of the Lord. Truly, O Lord, you are Anta Yami. It's one of the names of Vishnu, is Antaryami. There's one word, the Lord within, Antaryami. You give all knowledge, remembrance, or forgetfulness. That's Bhagavad Gita, right? 15:15 Bhagavad Gita. Situated within the heart of every living entity. Matak smitir jnanam apohanam cha. Sarvasya chaham radi sanivishto. Matak smitir jnanam apohanam cha. You, Krishna is saying, he's situated in the heart of every living entity, and from him comes knowledge, remembrance, or forgetfulness. I mean, you can't even forget something without Vishnu helping you. You can't remember something without Vishnu helping you. You can't have knowledge without Vishnu. Dhruva Maharaj said, my dear Lord, you are all powerful. After entering within me, you have enlivened all my sleeping senses, my hands, legs, ears, touch sensation, life force, and especially my power of speech. You have made all of my senses spiritual, and the offer my respectful obeisances unto you. So that's the first of the 5. he's glorifying what his experience was from being touched by the conch of Vishnu. And then he's going to describe his realization as a result, and that is the supremacy of Vishnu. Out of all entities in all of creation, you are supreme. And he's understanding, little boy, 5 years old, hasn't gone to school yet. He's understanding the conclusions of all the Vedas. So it starts, Ekas Tvam Eva Bhagavan. You are the Supreme One. Eka. You are the Supreme One. Idam Atma Shaktya. By your different energies, you appear differently in the spiritual and material world. So that one, that Eka, has unlimited potencies, and through unlimited potencies, the one appears in different ways, but one entity. Yes? Good. In the whole material world, by your own potency, there may be other sub-controllers, but without your enabling them, they cannot do anything. So what are some of the sub-controllers? They're the demigods. Or they're other powerful beings that have mystic powers. Amazing powers that ordinary people don't have. But where do they get those powers from? From the source of all power. And you are that one. You're the powerhouse. The source of everything. He's understanding that. Just by this Lord Vishnu standing before him, the touch of his conch shell. You create the total energy of the material world by your external potency. There's an image of Mahavishnu glancing over Pradhan, or here the picture is Durga, and by his glance, you can maybe see that from the painting, he's glancing over Pradhan, and the whole of the material creation starts to move. And it's just his energy, or in a little more detail. Mahavishnu, question. When you see images of Mahavishnu, where's the goddess of fortune? You don't see her, do you? You know why? Here's what the scripture explains. Rama Devi is the consort, the internal potency of Mahavishnu. And she is within Mahavishnu enjoying yoga nidra, eternal pastimes within Mahavishnu. So Rama Devi has expanded potencies, and one of those expanded potencies is Chaya Devi. I can say these things with an Indian audience and it doesn't bewilder you. Some people are from India, but maybe you just follow along. Chaya means shadow or reflection. Yes? Chaya. So there's the internal potency and there's the reflection of the internal potency. That's what that is. That's Pradhan is the shadow potency or reflection potency. And Mahavishnu glances over that potency, and that begins the process of creation. He glances over his own external potency because the external potency is a reflection of the internal potency. Then what happens? Well, it's right in this verse what happens next. You then enter into everything. So Mahavishnu expands universes from his body, from the pores of his body, like golden seeds. As he exhales, when we exhale, that's not what happens. But when Mahavishnu exhales, golden universal seeds expand, and the elements that are his external energy cling to those seas and they start to expand as universes, each one. Then he expands himself within each universe. This is what the Vedas describe. Maybe you know the Purusha Sukta prayers. Sahasra Shirsha Purusha, Sahasraksha, Sahasrapat, etc. All of this is described there in Rig Veda. It's described in the Puranas. I'm just giving you a slow motion little picture of things. Mahavishnu expands himself within each universe. Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. And then Garbhodakshaya Vishnu expands himself within every atom, within everything. Dhruva is a little 5-year-old boy and he's understanding this. And he's seeing Vishnu in front of him and he's giving a little creation class. Saying, you're the source of everything. You enter into the atom, both the chara and achara, the moving and non-moving living entities as Paramatma. Just as fire entering into wood of different shapes burns brilliantly in different varieties. It's really simple. It's a metaphor. Here's a wooden table. And the wooden table came from a tree. And the tree gathered energy of the sun, heat and light, through photosynthesis process and stored fire in the wood. And then the tree was cut down to make a little table. So in this table, there's fire. But then, it's not hot. But if I want fire to come out of the wood, what do? I put fire next to the wood, and the fire that's stored in the wood comes out of the wood. Yes? That's the Vedic explanation of fire. It's just a transformation of the energy of the sun stored somewhere and then it comes out by contact with fire. Similarly, Paramatma is within everything. Just like fire entering into wood of different shapes, and then it comes out. So, I was a biochemistry major in college, and I learned something, and you can tell different elements by putting it in flame, and some elements make a blue flame, red flame, orange flame, different color flame. And you can tell what the element is because fire comes out in different colors, in different varieties. That's what's being said here. Where does the variety within this world come from? Paramatma. Where does everything come from? The source of everything is where everything comes from. He's that source of everything, material and spiritual. That's what little Dhruva is saying in this one verse. So here's a little summary. Again, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. The previous verse is saying like this. The senses of your devotees, by your mercy, focus on you and become spiritual, since they are completely filled with your presence. Swadhamna. Then there's others. They're not devotees. The senses of others, however, focus on Maya alone and become only material senses. Maya, Kya, that's what's in this verse. So this is just 2 verses so far out of 12, but it's kind of like packed up. He's giving a Bhagavad Gita class in 12 verses. The whole of Bhagavad Gita is 700 verses in 12. Very interesting. So now we're ready for verse number 3, or prayer number 3. He's going to glorify the very personable, friendly, giving nature of that source of everything. One of the most outstanding qualities of Krishna, according to scripture, is Bhakta Vatsala. Means he's very affectionate to his devotees. By nature, just like mothers are very affectionate to their children. They have to go to mother school and learn, I have to be affectionate to my child. It's just natural. Mothers are affectionate to their children. Similarly, Vishnu is naturally affectionate to his devotee. He extends himself. As they extend to him, he extends to them. It's natural. Ye namam prapadyante, tam sataiva vajamyam. As Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, as people have regard to me, I reciprocate. The one who is devoted to him, he reciprocates. And this verse, this prayer, is Dhruva glorifying that nature of Vishnu. He has a very giving nature. This is an image of Lord Brahma, who received from Krishna the understanding of how to create or engineer the universe. So, you're a giver. Here's the verse. Here's the explanation of the verse. Tvad dataya vayuna yedam. It's very small letters, huh? Vachashva Vishvam. In the beginning, you gave Brahma and the Kumaras knowledge. When Brahma was born, what existed? Nothing. It was darkness in all directions. Pretty lonely. You couldn't even turn on a flashlight or get your cell phone out and turn the little light thing on your cell phone so you can find out what's out there. There's nothing out there. The darkness in all directions. And there's nobody to talk to. And the only thing he could hear, a splashing sound. The waves of the Garbhodak ocean that were beneath him. And he was on a lotus that was swaying, so he intuitively understood, if I can follow down the stem of this lotus, then I can find where it came from. And he climbed down and down and down and down and down and down and down. He couldn't find the end to it. And he realized that by empiric research, I'm not going to find my source. He understood that. And then there was a sound. He heard tapa, tapa, 3 times. Tapa. And he knew what to do. Tapa, austerity. He climbed back up the stem. Krishna gave him mantra, and he meditated on his mantra. And then got knowledge. He became purified. And then Tene Brahma Hridaya Adikavaye. From his heart he received knowledge from Krishna. And then he manifested that knowledge through his mouth. And then he did the creation because that was what he was supposed to do. He understood his duty. He was awakened by transcendental knowledge, and then he did what he's supposed to do. He did his duty, which is construct the universe. So Dhruva it's like somebody who just wakens in the morning, like you might. Tonight you take rest, and you wake up in the morning. Okay, now I have some duties to do. It's Monday morning. Then you do what you got to do. You go back to school, or go to work, or go into the kitchen, or do your duties. So like that, Brahma became awakened to the knowledge of the source of everything by the mercy of Krishna. And now, similarly, Dhruva has become awakened by the mercy of Krishna. You are the only shelter of all pious persons who desire liberation, and you are the friend of all who are distressed. Therefore, how can somebody who understands all of this ever forget you? Well, it's not possible unless you're ungrateful for all of what you have received. But if you acknowledge what you've received and you understand the source of where it came from, You engage in activity in relation to the source of where it came from. You serve the Supreme. And here's a gloss or summary by Vishwanath of this verse for prayer. Oh, my Master, Lord Brahma is fully surrendered unto you. In the beginning you gave him knowledge, and thus he could see and understand the entire universe, just as a person awakens from sleep and visualizes his immediate duties. You are the only shelter of all persons who desire liberation, and you are the friend of all who are distressed. How therefore can a learned person who has perfect knowledge ever forget you? So in other words, please help me never forget you. Because 2 verses out of the 12, he's asking for association of Narada and persons like Narada, devotees, that will sing the glories of the personality of God and keep you fixed in this position of never forgetting you. So there's just 2 more, and we'll finish for this evening. Very naturally, one of the verses is expressing his humility, and it's genuine and it's profound, because previously he was wanting arti, he was wanting wealth. Like some of us may also want some wealth. A foolish person such as me desires benediction from you for sense gratification. That's the Sanskrit. Here's a little image. Someone's praying to God for you know what. Sense gratification is available even for those who live in hellish conditions. Persons who worship you simply for the sense gratification of this bag of skin are certainly influenced by your illusory energy. Certainly Maya has stolen their intelligence like me to worship you for a kingdom. That was his motivation. Initially at least. Now he's regretting that. In spite of having you, who are like a kalpataru, a desire tree, from you the cause of liberation from birth and death can come. Instead, foolish persons like me desire benediction from you for sense gratification, which is available even for those who live in hellish conditions. Humility. He was feeling, appropriately, deep regret for being materially ambitious when he's going to get what he wanted. Because the Lord is going to reciprocate. Here's a little summary of Vishwanath again. Those who worship you, giver of freedom from birth and death, for insignificant results, as if you were a material desire tree, and through a corpse-like body of human form, desire happiness arising from sense objects, which is available to lower animals, are certainly cheated of their intelligence by your Maya. And his commentary. The 4th type of devotee, artarti bhakta. So the 4th type refers to a verse from Bhagavad Gita. Chatur vidha bhajante mam jana sukritanarjuna. Chatur vidha. 4 categories of highest people. Jana sukriti. Those persons who are pious come to you for devotion, for service, in 4 categories. And one of those categories is artarti. They want money, they want wealth, they want prosperity. And I'm in that category, artarti. He is the lowest and most foolish. Certainly, their intelligence has been cheated. Who are they? They worship you, would give freedom from birth and death for trifling results. Thus, they worship you as a desire tree. They desire happiness through a body comparable to a corpse. This should not be desired. That happiness arising from relation to sense objects is available in births of pigs. Not very flattering. So, if that's not what we're supposed to be asking for, what are we supposed to be asking for? Maybe elevation to heaven. So that's this final. Far, far, far beyond Svarga is the spiritual world, where there's just this unlimited spiritual happiness. That is to say, the living entity by nature is the soul. That's the animating force within the body. The body comes and it goes. The soul doesn't come and go. It's eternal, full of knowledge and ananda. And through yoga, bhakti yoga, loving service to the Supreme, one can experience that unlimited ananda instead of the temporary one, not near ananda. Although one may be elevated to the heavenly planets, he falls down in due course of time. There's a path leading to the lotus feet of Krishna, and one who follows that finds this ananda on the other end. The bliss derived from devotional service cannot be compared to that experienced by jnanis or yogis, which speak of karmis, those who want elevation to heaven. My Lord, the transcendental bliss derived from meditating upon your lotus feet, tava pada pada dhyana, or hearing about your glories from pure devotees, Bhavaj Jana Kata Shravanina Vasya, is so unlimited that is far beyond the stage of Brahmananda, where one thinks himself merged in the impersonal Brahman as one with the Supreme. So maybe some of you are not familiar with this Brahmananda idea. Ananda means bliss and Brahman means the impersonal feature of the Supreme. And there's a happiness of cessation of the material misery, and that happiness is equated commonly with Brahmananda. But he's saying, since Brahmananda is also defeated by the transcendental bliss derived from devotional service, then what to speak of the temporary blissfulness of elevating oneself to the heavenly planets, which is ended by the separating sword of time. Although one may be elevated to the heavenly planets, he falls down in due course of time. Chapter 8, Bhagavad Gita. He's just expanding Bhagavad Gita's message. So, by the sword of time, one is cut from his elevated position within the material world, and he comes down again, just like Patatam Vimana, right from the verse, like at Vimana. There's a 747 descending, but Vimanas aren't 747s. They're celestial craft, aircraft or spacecraft. And just like it's aircraft that goes up, when it runs out of fuel, it comes back down again. You can't stay. So you can't stay in heavenly planets. By piety you can go, and then you use up the piety, and Shine Punye Martya Lokam Vishanti, you come back down again. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Dhruva is saying it to Vishnu in one verse. There's a reference, some of you are familiar, the churning of the milk ocean. There's a painting. The churning of the milk ocean. Anyone not familiar with that? Churning of the milk ocean? Don't know. No sign. Okay. In the eighth, in the 8th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, there's several chapters describing the churning of the milk ocean without details. Demons on one side, demigods on the other side, Vasuki surrounding, so they're churning the milk ocean. And things are produced from the milk ocean and so on. At a certain point, they decide to have a truce. The demigods offer prayer. There was a battle. There's a truce. They offer prayers to Vishnu. He comes. Brahma offers prayers. This is Canto 8, Chapter 6, where he says to Vishnu, who is before them, the bliss of realizing the personal form is superior to the happiness of realizing his impersonal aspect. And the phrase that's used is nirvana. That's a favorite Buddhist phrase. Yes? Nirvana. It's right from the Vedas. Not his invention. It's a Vedic term. Spoken long before Buddha came. Sukha Arnavaya. It's like an ocean of happiness of nirvana. The happiness of connecting and loving service to Krishna cannot be compared to the whole ocean of that. Nirvana happiness. Now, let's do this. How are we doing with time? It's 20 minutes before 7. What time should I end? 6:30? Huh? Another 10 minutes. Pardon me. I'm exercising your patience here. One of the places that I visit for a couple of months each year is China. And I've learned a lot from visiting China. And one of the things that I've learned about visiting China is many people in China say that they're Buddhist, although they don't even know what Buddhism is. But everyone that says they're Buddhist, they know that the goal of Buddhism is nirvana. So, what does the term nirvana mean? It's a Sanskrit term that means cessation of material existence. So what's material existence made of, according to Buddhist teaching? It's suffering. Material existence is suffering. And what's the root cause of suffering? Desire. So if you want to be Buddhist teaching, if you want to become free from suffering, become free from desire. And if you want to become free from desire, how do you do that? There's two main things. Live your life in the quality of goodness. There's this eightfold teaching of Buddha. It's goodness, 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 goodness. He doesn't use that language. Sattva guna. And do meditation. And in that meditation, you're instructed to be totally absorbed in the moment. That's where this mindfulness term, that's very popular today. I was passing by, going to a college program in Chicago, and it's become commercialized. But that mindfulness term is a Buddhist term. And it's be in the moment. Don't worry about the future. Don't lament over the past. Just be in the moment, because all there is the moment. The past is gone, the future. Just be in the moment. Be in the moment, be in the moment. What happens if you become really accomplished in being in the moment? Fasten your seatbelt. You go on the other side of the moment. And what's on the other side of the moment? Nirvana. And what's nirvana? It's cessation of material existence. What's on the other side of nirvana? The bliss of loving service in your spiritual form to the personality of Godhead. The path of yoga takes you beyond nirvana. I just did a 3-minute something. I was asked to do it at Emory University. The topic they asked me to speak about was the path of yoga beyond nirvana. Or beyond nirvana, the path of yoga. So that was the topic. So that's what Brahma is saying here in the Bhagavatam. And that's what Dhruva is saying to Lord Vishnu. The happiness, the ananda, the bliss that one can experience, that I'm experiencing now, being before you and enlivened senses wanting to serve you, it far surpasses anything. Heaven, mystic power, becoming one with Brahman, the happiness of becoming one with Brahman, nothing in comparison to this happiness. And this living entity, part and parcel of the supreme living entity, he is smaller than the atom and bigger than anything at the same time. I'll do it again. It's a contradiction. You may be very small. Something may be very small, or something may be very big. But can it be simultaneously very small and very big? Vishnu can. He's bigger than the biggest and smaller than the smallest at the same time. At the same time. Little Dhruva is understanding that. He didn't go to school. He didn't have a teacher, didn't study Bhagavad Gita or anything. He chanted Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, and he received mercy from Narada, and everything is resting in you. That's in Dhruva's prayer. Little boy. So this is, the fulcrum is, we start in material consciousness where it's all about me, and we want to get to the place where it's all about Krishna. And there's a big gap in between. And in that gap, we're on the path of yoga, and in social language it's called liminal space. And what are we doing? Well, we're in that liminal space. So what we're doing to reach the goal and let go of it's all about me. That's the transition of a practitioner of yoga, Bhakti yoga, a follower of Bhagavad Gita, a follower of these wonderful teachings of Dhruva Maharaj through his prayers and what he was given by Narada. We're done. In 5 minutes instead of 10. So, someone want to turn the light on? If there's anybody would like to add something, ask a question, hear some discussion on the topic, please. Comments or questions, anybody? Yes. Yeah.
So, what does it mean to be in the present? Like, is it even possible in this time and age?
Yes, it is. The question, if you didn't hear, what does it mean to be in the present, and is it possible in this age? Yes. And it's not by the Buddhistic process of meditation, although that can help you get closer and closer and closer, for sure. It is a valid, legitimate process, and it's doable. But to get to the point where you can stay there, that's very difficult. And it's possible to stay there when the subtle body that's influenced by the modes of nature is controlled and eventually by the bhakti process is dissolved. So consciousness certainly can become elevated, and the binding forces can be slackened and eventually nullified. Now, the nullification is for very elevated persons. It's not an everyday person, but is it possible? Certainly possible. And by association with such elevated persons, it helps one get closer to that place. But the short answer is yes. Yes.
So, some people can derive the wrong meaning from Dhruva Maharaj story, that it's okay to wish for a material possession as long as I'm praying to Lord, because Dhruva did exactly that, but it was Lord's mercy that he, Lord gave him the spiritual blessings and the liberation. So, how do we tackle that?
Did you hear the question? I'll repeat the question. Some people say, hey, it's justified. Go for your material stuff, approach Vishnu for your material stuff, and you get your material stuff and liberation too. Go for it. That's not how it said it. So how do you respond to that idea? Well, the Bhagavatam teaches us, Canto 2, Chapter 2, Akama, Sarvakama, Mokshakama, Uddharadi. Uddharadi means those who have broad intelligence. Uddharadi. Tibrena Bhakti Yogena Yajeta Purusham Brahm. It's not an advocacy, go for your material stuff, but supposing somebody's attached to material stuff. Everyone's attached to something in the material sphere. So what is such a person, that's almost everybody, to do? Tiva Bhakti, that's what you're to do. Now, one can say, hey, it's okay. And that's not okay. Because he was advised, let go. He couldn't let go. He couldn't let go because two reasons. He was a Kshatriya by spirit, and he was insulted, he just retaliated. Kshatriya. And the other was, his heart, he recognized the instruction to let go was a good instruction, but his heart was broken like a broken pot that couldn't hold water. So he wanted instruction that can help him get the kingdom. He got on the other side of that material desire. When he got to the other side, it was gone. He didn't start, I want to get rid of this desire. He wanted fulfillment of that desire. It was really clear, very determined. So, if one is so determined, you go to Vishnu. And that we discussed the answer to your question earlier, the first evening. There's Canto 5, Chapter 19, you can look it up later. There's a nice verse, prayers by the residents of Jambudvip to the Supreme Lord, who say, you are such a Lord that you are very kind. You never give material things to your devotee because it will complicate their lives and they'll fall down. But if you do give them something, you're very intelligent. You give them in such a way they'll never desire it again because you give them your two lotus feet. And when you give them your two lotus feet, that desire is gone. You're the most worshipable. Now, that's because the object is Vishuddha Sattva. Supposing the object is not Vishuddha Sattva, and one prays for something, like demigods, they're not Vishuddha Sattva. When they get some dispensation, there's that and the other thing. But it's not done in the same way. One therefore should become a worshipper of, according to the Bhagavatam, worshipper of Vishnu, because then one will go back to Vishnu and say, I want the other thing, and the other thing, and the other thing. that tendency is removed by the mercy of Krishna. Okay, our past time. It's time for announcements now. Thank you very much to the Prabhupada.